My name is MaryAnn Emerick. For those of you that don't know me, I work for the Huntington's Disease Society of America. My role is Manager of Youth and Community Services, and I'm really excited to be on the panel with these two. This session is called Healing Through Words, Storytelling as an Emotional Support. So I'm going to pass it to my panelists and let them introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Draque Ricco. I've been doing work with HD Reach, HDSA for the last, it's been a decade.
I've known you since you were under 18, so it's
I
been a long time.
know. She still calls me by my first name because she knew me before the beard, and now everyone who knows me after the beard just calls me Ricco. It's kind of funny.
My name is Erin Paterson. I'm from an HD family. My dad is living with Huntington's disease, and I'm gene positive for Huntington's disease. And I publish books about Huntington's disease because I think it's really important for people to be able to share their stories and for the community to be able to have a voice.
Thank you for sharing. Drake, you want to just share your connection to HD?
Yeah, so my mother had Huntington's disease. She passed back in 2021 when she took her life. And we kind of always knew about it. You know, she told my sister and I when we were about 6 and 7 years old. And from the get-go, we were full force working with the Center of Excellence in Iowa City. In 2015, my sister and I went to HDYO camp, and since then I think I've only missed one convention. I've done the NYA camps, and now I stream for HD Reach, doing the Game Over HD group, where we talk about our story and, you know, giving information and anything that's needed through the medium of video games.
Awesome. So just want to share like storytelling. We're going to talk about storytelling, but storytelling varies, right? So it's not just about like writing books, right? And we're going to just share how that could be also very healing in sharing your story and inspiring and empowering for yourself and others. So can you share the first time you spoke about HD and sort of story told or shared a piece of your story with someone else?
The first time, it was 5th grade. I was doing a science project for class because that was the first time we were talking about the double helix. And they were, you know, what do you know about genetics? And so I got to do a little snippet talking about Huntington's disease and my mom having Huntington's. And that, I remember that was the very first time I was actually able to, you know, talk about it in full force.
I can't really remember the first time. I just, after I went through genetic testing, I hid my diagnosis and the fact that my dad had HD from people for a very long time because I was afraid that if people found out, they wouldn't want to be friends with me or they wouldn't want to be in a relationship with me. I do remember the first time I tested it out, I guess you could say. You know, there was my husband and I had a new couple friend. They didn't know anything about Huntington's disease or that it was in my family. And we went out for dinner and I was like, I made the intentional thought, I'm gonna use the word Huntington's disease in the conversation for the first time. So then over the course of dinner, I said something about my dad having Huntington's disease, and that moment was like terrifying for me. And I thought, okay, that's gonna be it. They're gonna call me tomorrow and say, I never wanna see you again, or something like that. Like that's how dramatic I thought things would be. And I was just in such a bad place, like even if the HD clinic sent something to me in the mail, I was like, oh no, now the postman's gonna know that I have Huntington's disease because it had the logo on the outside. So I was really terrified in the beginning, and I just did little things like that, going out to dinner and saying the word Huntington's disease without crying was a really big deal to me at the time.
Yeah, and what was like the unexpected maybe support or emotions of other people that you were like, oh, this isn't a big deal, or it is?
I would say most people don't really get it, so it's just like, not a big deal to them. Unless you express that it's a big deal, they don't take it as a big deal. That's my experience.
So I like how you say people don't really understand it. I see a lot of people who either disregard it or in turn, they also try to compare it to something else.
Sure.
And I see when people compare it as them trying to have some layer of understanding, like, oh, I know this little portion of what it's like, and I'm like, well, it's a great place to start. For me, I got that first like form of affirmation when I actually went to the H2YO camp for the first time, because it's different talking to other people who don't understand. And they can have a level of empathy, but not a complete understanding of what it is. But until you get around an HD group and you tell your story, and they're just like, yeah, we're all about it. And it's it's comforting.
I have a story to just add on to that, because there was one time I reached out to this lady in Canada who's a research scientist. Her name was Tamara, and we decided, oh, let's get together and have lunch together. And it was the very first time we had ever met, and we were sitting there chatting, and the waitress was like, oh, I can see you have a lot to catch up on, so I don't want to interrupt, but what do you want to eat, right? And I was like, oh, she thinks we've known each other for a very long time, but that was just like how instant the connection was, and how I didn't have to explain stuff to her. She just immediately got it. So since I didn't have to explain all that basic stuff, we could get into the deeper stuff that was really bothering me.
Yeah. It sometimes feels like, especially at these kind of events, right? Like the most important thing is finding that community, and you feel like so safe and comfortable out of nowhere. I don't know any of you, right? And I remember my first HDSA convention, like listening, and I never met anybody else in this community, and I just started hysterical crying, and someone just embraced me and hugged me, and I was just like, oh my God, like I feel so seen, and I don't have to explain anything. I don't have to share anything with anyone. And I finally realized, like, this is my safe space. This is a place that I can call home, right? And I think storytelling, then we can go into, like, how did you build up to being able to tell your story? And what was that first time like? Of like, not just like introducing it to someone, but really embracing and empowering yourself to share.
So, I spoke at different conventions. I did To Test or Not to Test. Did suicide prevention. I've spoken in different capacities, and a lot of time it's in HD community settings. But the first time, like really stepping out of that shell, was when we started doing Game Over HD, and I was just sharing it to the world. Like anyone could have hopped on and just said whatever they wanted to it. And I'll be honest, the first time, like I was just speaking it out into the ether, I was like, oh goodness, my stomach sank, but I just kind of kept talking. But as I kept talking about it, and I've actually made friends, because they'll hop onto the stream and be like, we love what you're doing. What you do is amazing. And they're never negative about it. And, they'll ask questions like, what about this? What about that? How do we deal with this? And, they take all, negative information that we give and flip it positive and make you, feel stronger for it. And it's like one of the most elative experiences, just kind of having that, it feels like a one-on-one confrontation, and then it kind of disappears and you can see the millions.
It took me a long time to be public. I started writing a book about my experiences of going through genetic testing and deciding how I was going to have kids, knowing that my kids were at risk, and that was really a traumatic experience. And we ended up suffering through infertility, and we didn't have a kid for 5.5 years, and we eventually ended up adopting our daughter. But adopting is also hard when you know you're going to get Huntington's disease, because you have to prove that you're going to be well enough to take care of a child. So that was a very traumatic experience. And then after I got it, like I had my kid, I felt like, okay, I finally feel like I fit into that part of society now. Like I don't feel like an outcast because of infertility, but I still felt like an outcast because nobody knew my HD story and I was hiding that part of myself. And I started thinking like there's got to be a better way to live. I did look to Michael J. Fox a lot because he was speaking about his Parkinson's diagnosis and saying like this is a gift I'm looking for all the gifts that this diagnosis has brought me. And I thought, like, I want to be like that guy. So I just started writing the book. I had a writing coach, and she was often the only one that I talked to about what I was writing about. And I had a new friend, and we'd drop our kids off to JK, and then when we walked back that 2 minutes to the car, I'd say, oh, this is the latest chapter I'm writing, and I would just hash it out with her. But I didn't even tell anybody I was writing the book because if anybody had said anything negative to me at that point, I wouldn't have been able to handle it, and I wouldn't have gone through with it. And then nobody in my family read the book until after it was out.
Really?
Yeah.
When did you finally, like, how did you share it with your family at that point?
I don't even remember. But it
didn't
took 4.5 years to get to that point, so.
So it took you
a
4
long journey.
years to write the book?
Yeah, yeah. And I did have one article published online. I wrote something, and I published it on the Mighty. And it took them 8 months. Like, I submitted it, and 8 months later they accepted it, and I was like, oh crap. and then I was like, oh, should I put it on Facebook? And Daniel's like, it's already online. You might as well put it on Facebook. And that was the first time I sort of came out to my Facebook friends and family about it. And I just got positive responses. You know, oh, I didn't know that's what you were going through, or that kind of stuff. Like, all of the horrible things I thought would happen didn't happen.
Usually is like that, right? Anxiety is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it makes up so many things for us. But so that unexpected like support, did that empower you then to like, you know what, now I don't need to worry about like giving people my book?
No. But it's still terrifying to
Yeah.
keep doing it. Every time somebody said
I was
they're
gonna
reading
say,
it, I
and
was
then
like,
multiple
or-
books after that.
yeah, and then if people said it was good, I was like, really? What exactly did you think was good? I need to know. Yeah.
When did you know you wanted to keep writing?
Well, when my first book came out, I experienced this, it's like all of a sudden, all of those stories that I was holding on to, because they felt so important, like I didn't have to hold on to them anymore. I'm like, okay, they're in the book now. It was like a weird feeling that it took me like 6 months to figure out what was going on. It's like, okay, those stories are in the book, they could be there, I don't have to hold on to them anymore. And it was just like this huge release,
Yeah.
and this weight lifted off my shoulders. And I thought it would be great to help other people from the HD community do that. And I was still thinking, oh, everybody's secretive about HD. Nobody's gonna wanna be in this book. Nobody's gonna wanna share their stories. And I didn't even know anybody from the community really. So I like reached out to that one person who sent me to that one person. I put a post on Facebook, and then like within 3 months I had spoken to about 130 different people who wanted to share their stories, and then it ended up being 35. And then some people dropped out due to family issues, so we ended up with 25 or 26 people in that book.
But initially that interest, like people want to share.
Yeah, people
Just-
do. They're dying for
A voice.
yeah, a place to share that. Yeah.
Was it always easy for you to share, Draque? Or what was that like turning point of like, oh man.
So it really depended on the space. It like there's a level of safety that you can kind of feel, and funny enough, like I think one of the hardest parts was talking to my own family about it. Like the people that you live in the house with, you don't normally think of telling that story. Like they're there with you every day. How much of a story is there really to tell? But you never realize how, you know, just this same person you eat dinner with every single night, your whole family sitting there, your story is different from theirs, even if they had the same experience, because there's two different perspectives of that experience. And kind of saying your viewpoint was always the hardest part, because my family's confrontational. It's a very much a you're right or I'm right, you're wrong kind of sort of thing. And being able to stand there and say, this is my view and there is no invalidation of that view. Like you won't change how I experienced it just because you saw it differently. I think that was the hardest part. But, and I kind of took that emotion when I was going into streaming for the first time, actually talking about HD, and I was prepared to be like confrontational and people be like, no, because of this or no, because of that, because society today just seems to be confrontational about everything. You could say the sky is blue and someone's going to say that, but there's white in the clouds. And, you know, I was prepared for that, and then it never happened. Because, you know, sometimes I don't give the benefit of the doubt for all the people out there who are just supportive because they're supportive. I have guest stars who have made repeated appearances at this point that are like, we just love being on here because one of what you're doing and the fact that you guys are so welcoming, because I love how you were talking about the idea of, you know, there's blessings that come with HD, and one of them, like in the NYA, we called our HD family Ohana. You know, Ohana means family, and family means no one is left behind or forgotten. And one of the things that I always tell the people who kind of guest star with us is like, hey, you guys are here today spending your personal time. Like, you are part of this Ohana because you care enough to be with us and to show that you stand with us. And sometimes it's those small acts that can be like bigger than monsters when it comes to, you know, sharing how we feel. Is, you know, someone willing to link arms with you and say, okay.
Absolutely. I have a question. I know you shared a little bit about like Game Over and what is exactly streaming and things like that for those that don't understand. Like, who are you sharing that information with?
So it's everybody. Anybody that can log on to twitch.tv, it's just a website. We go live like the same way you watch TV, and you can, as long as we're live, you can watch us. And, you know, we could have the whole world watching if they so well please.
Yeah, so people just log in, and I just want for people to know, like, you don't have to be a gamer to jump onto Twitch, right? Like, you just go on, you watch Draque or H right now, and Haley, I think, too, right?
Just H and I.
Just you and H, and it's like, they're playing a game, and they're talking about HD, they're talking about different topics that come up in maybe like the chats and things like that, right? And different questions and prompts. So I just want to like highlight like what that is, because I think people don't understand. I didn't.
No, you're all good.
No.
And so then people type in the chat, but if I went on, I can't talk to you directly. I just type in the chat.
Right. But and here's the thing: if we have like an open book, like if you guys like say you want to come on and play a game with us, come on and play a game. We do guest stars all the time, and it's just to have fun. That's kind of the whole premise, is just to have fun, play games with your friends, and talk about what HD is.
Are there any other ways?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course. Are you guys okay with jumping in?
Do you find that there are certain things that are like off the table as far as what you'll talk about in your storytelling, or is it completely out in the open and you'll talk about any of it?
So I'm gonna backtrack just a little bit. So like I said before, my mom took her life back in 2021, and if I start crying, I'm just gonna warn you now, I can already feel it. When my mom took her life back in 21, I did not take it well. At the same time, I was going through a divorce, and my whole world came crashing down all at once. You know, school was going extremely hard for me. The people I was friends with were picking sides in my marriage, and you know, only a few were on my side. Towards the end of that, my mom took her life, and when I went to go see her, I didn't know they were cremating her. So the last time I saw my mom was on my birthday, on the day I moved away, and I still remember all those emotions when I went into that, and I ended up becoming an alcoholic to the point that I found myself standing on a ledge, and I was full and prepared to throw myself off a building, and I was lucky enough to have a friend who stuck with me through all of that, who he stood right at that window and he said, "Come back." And I finally got some help and talked through that with a therapist who kind of gave me these coping mechanisms and tools to work through all of it. The reason why I backed up that far to explain is because of the therapy that I went through. She did more than just help me get over my feelings, but she taught me to actually communicate. She gave me the words that no one else could, because I grew up in a family that was very I'm right, you're wrong, which meant that I always chose my words as carefully as possible to hopefully get a reaction that was most beneficial. You would say in silver tongue, and but I was never able just to speak freely. But because of that therapy, I've been able to speak freely, which gave me the confidence to speak about anything. So when I'm on live, I don't hold anything back. So any experience I had growing up, any experience I have now, I put it out into the world, and it's out there, and like I said, no one can change my experience.
I'm pretty open about sharing almost everything, except for I'm just a little bit more careful when it comes to talking about my dad. I only recently started speaking about being a caregiver for my dad. But there's certain things for privacy and respect that I don't share about things that my dad goes to. If it wasn't being recorded and we were just here having a conversation, probably I would tell you everything. But that other than that, I'm pretty open about everything, and I'm okay if anybody asks me about anything, even those things that you think, oh my gosh, I shouldn't ask that question. The person's gonna think I'm a horrible person for even thinking this. I'll answer those questions.
Yeah, and I say I'm an open book, and I'm a trauma dumper. Like, let's just talk about trauma. Don't get past that surface level stuff. But I was at a conference in Prague recently, and I spoke about something that I never spoke about out loud. And because I think we continue to experience our journey with an HD or mental health or anything that continues, and you don't realize the impacts until you're sharing it. And you're like, oh gosh, I didn't realize I was going to get this emotional about this, or I didn't feel comfortable sharing. I remember there was a video that I was part of, a storytelling video, and my family was very critical about my experience, and they were like, that's not how that happened. And I was like, but that's how I perceived it, right? And that was my perspective of it, and this was my opportunity to share that. Have you guys ever experienced any negative and please share positive feedback from family or friends of your willingness to share your story?
For myself personally, my mom's read my book 4 or 5 times, my first one, and it really helped her understand all the stuff that I didn't tell her I was going through. I was going through infertility treatments and I didn't tell anybody about it. She didn't have any idea for the longest time. So it really helped her to understand all of that. So I think that's helped our relationship a little bit. Yeah.
So most of my family is well receptive to me talking about HD. My dad doesn't like to talk about my mom in most parts. They were getting divorced, and that my mom actually took her life the day before her and my dad were to be divorced. And so my sister and I talk freely, but the one person who you can't even say the word Huntington's around is my grandmother, because even though it's been almost 4 years now since my mother, 3.5 since my mother passed, my grandmother still does not believe to this day she had Huntington's disease. She claims that she shopped around until someone gave her something, and it's one of the hardest conversations to have, because, you know, this is one of the biggest parts in my life. And, you know, I love to share. I love, you know, this, to me, being able to speak here today is an accomplishment. Because it could have been one person. It could have been MaryAnn sitting across the table from me, and to me that's still an accomplishment. Because every time you tell the story, whether it's one person or 100 people, that means it's one other person to hear what's being said, and something you say might help. But for my grandmother, she just, I can't even put a finger on what it is, because I couldn't even say it's denial, because it's to such an aggressive point. So that's probably like the most negative response, because I remember one time my sister and I stood up for my mom and said, no, she has Huntington's, and it was a flurry of words, to say the least. But from the rest of like my friends and families, I have one friend who he was just trying to call me, who's like, hey, I'm gonna pop down and check your stuff out, and I'm like, you better call me before 2:30 or I'm not picking up. It's almost 3 o'clock. He fails.
How has like life and just like you experiencing like community and support changed since opening up and sharing your story?
So I have the perfect part for this. You were at the camp. You remember, right? Oh, 2015 HDYO, very first one, because I remember because MaryAnn led this very specific exercise.
Me?
Yes,
I'm old. I don't remember the
I still have my yellow piece of paper that everybody signed with little messages on it. I held on to that since 2015 and never gotten rid of it. That'll be in my classroom when I start day one. But we were out at the bonfire, and MaryAnn was passing out scrap pieces of paper and pencils. And she said, write down your deepest fear. And I found it so interesting when we were all talking, because we had just spent the majority of the week talking HD. And by the bonfire, we finally kind of, it sounds weird to say it in a kind of situation like this, but we got past the HD. Like, you get into HD groups and you talk about your HD experiences and stuff. And then once you start spending enough time with those people, you really kind of get past the HD and really see what the rest of the life is like. And I remember writing down, because my biggest fear, it used to be dying alone, because I never had a lot of friends growing up. Like, I would have people, but not really friends, if that makes sense. Like, I know they were there, but I wasn't the first choice to be there. And like, we all threw them in the fire, and we kind of talked about what those meant to us. And I think it was after that point that we really just like, I felt like the first time kind of breaking out of that shell, because I was being able to speak a true part of me versus the manufactured mask that, you know, every teenager has to wear. And like, that almost made me feel better about my HD story, because I was able to be like, well, it's a big part of me, it's not my only part. And even my negatives can turn positives, because through all the blessings I found the Ohana.
What's the question?
What has
I know, I go on
What has
holidays.
changed since opening up?
Wow. Well, my life is completely different. My life has expanded in so many ways. I'm here and I'm meeting all these wonderful people and being a part of this community, and I'm not insulated and alone anymore with my emotions. Like, if I have a problem, so many people that I can reach out to now, and so much support that I could receive if I just asked for help. And I would say that really 3 years ago I was afraid of people. I know that seems weird to say, but you know, I was like, I just had I used to have a flower shop, and then I worked for camps, and then I was at home during COVID, and I didn't have any experience talking to people from the HD community or people from corporate or people who work at drug companies, you know, and I was afraid that they were different and I was less than them.
Now you're a rock star advocate.
And they're all people too.
Yeah, so
Remember
now
that,
I'm just like, people are just people. We all have an amazing story to share. And we're all doing such cool things, and it's just really, I just feel blessed to know so many supportive, wonderful people.
Yeah. What would you share with someone that's thinking about sharing? What would some advice that you would
Do it.
And not like, because there's also so many different ways to share your story, right?
Yeah.
It's not just writing a book, it's not just streaming, it's not just being, you know, because I'm a big believer in like, also we have to protect ourselves, right? Because there are people that are going to criticize us
Sure.
at time, right? And like also, when something's on social media, it's on forever, and I think we struggle with like wanting to, you know, break the stigma, but also protecting ourselves,
Mhm.
and our families.
So just share in the way that's right for you, and if that's going out and having coffee with somebody and talking about Huntington's disease one-on-one, like that's storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
and that's sharing, and that's a big deal. Like to make that decision to do that is a big deal, or just coming to a conference like this and speaking to other people, that's a big deal too. Like all of those are scary things to step outside your comfort zone and do.
Yeah.
You don't have to, you know, stream and be there for the entire world to hear, or write about your family's deepest secrets in a book and hope that they don't disown you. Yeah, so just take whatever small step feels good to you. You can post on social media anonymously if you wanted to.
Yeah.
You could write blogs.
I was gonna say there's a few like articles like when you feel passionate about stuff you decide to write, right?
Oh, whenever somebody pisses me off, I write a story about it and get it published somewhere. But I always say, oh, this is the thing that pissed me off. But then, like, here's the good parts about it too, or here's a way that things could change, or here's a suggestion for how things could be better. Like, I don't just rant.
Yeah.
I always try to make a change somehow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I honestly I can't really add too much to that. Just be yourself.
Yeah.
No one's asking for any more than that.
And I think it could be like the smallest steps. I remember like very defensive about anything HD. I would wear like, anybody knows me, I'm never not in an HD t-shirt, right? And so somebody's like, I love someone with HD, and I'm in a coffee shop and they're like, you love someone with an HD television? And I'm like, let me tell you, and I'm automatically fighting. You know, they want to learn, they want to hear, like, and then I share with them. And then some of these like open up doors and opportunities to talk more about it. And, you know, your story is so much more impactful and your voice is so much more impactful than you even realize. And it is just sharing that with that one person. It doesn't have to be writing a book or, you know, streaming all the time. One last question and then I'm gonna open it up. How has, you know, sharing your story helped you cope with like grief or other emotions and things that have happened?
It helps me process it, because if I'm upset about something, then writing it out helps me identify how I actually feel. So that's very helpful. And also, sometimes there isn't somebody to listen, or you don't feel ready to reach out to somebody. So for me, writing is like that. It's like that private place where I can explore my own feelings without the fear of being judged. Yeah.
What's the question?
How has sharing your story helped you cope with like grief or other emotions?
So, goodness. So, back at Atlanta, Georgia, I remember doing one of the breakout sessions there. And we just kind of did a nice group therapy circle, kind of talking about that, and that it was about almost
Mental health.
10.
I remember that.
Yeah, about 10 months after my mom had passed. And the only time I had really talked about it was with my one friend at the time and my therapist. I hadn't even gotten the courage to tell my now fiance about how I was feeling because one of my big things I have a hero complex, so I have like the big sense of I want to be there to save someone, and like I remember finally saying what I had been feeling in that moment to, and I just broke down. I like hadn't cried that hard ever before. Like, and there's 2 times in my life that I distinctly came to the point of being nonverbal. That was the night my mom died and the day I was finally able to speak up about it. And ever since that day, you know, every time I talk about it, it gets a little bit easier and easier. It never truly goes away. Like it's like I said, it's been almost 4 years now, and I'll be driving home from work and I'll accidentally go to call my mom. Like I had my first job interview to be an 8th grade English teacher. My mom was a high school English teacher, and she was considered the best in 2 states. And you know, I never got the chance to tell her, you know, that hey, I did it. And like one of the songs I have not been able to listen to yet, but I'm going to one day is the song "Hey Look Ma, I Made It." I know as soon as I hear that, I'm gonna bawl. I'm holding back right now. It's gonna stay.
You don't have to hold back. Let it out.
Oh, it's gonna stay in for a minute.
Okay, that's good.
But just each time I just talk about it, it gets a little bit easier, but it's still there. But just because it's hard doesn't mean it's bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think like grief, and this is like a very like cliche thing to say, but it's so true. Grief or that loved one is always with us, right? Like my mom passed 14 years ago, and it's like this rock I hold every single day. But I learned to live with that rock, and I got stronger holding that rock. And I think that I've been able to embrace her and let her live on through me by sharing my story, by sharing pieces about her, and really like letting her live continuously through me. So I think like there's such a positive way to, you know, cope with grief by sharing your story. And that's like with one person, right? Or with hundreds of people. So thank you both for sharing.